Hi, my name is Andrew Neff. I'm a director with the Upstream Solutions team with S&P Global. Today I'm going to talk a little bit about Russian oil sanctions and some recent developments in the oil market. Now, we've seen the United States and its Western partners impose a number of sanctions on Russia in response to the February 2022 invasion of Ukraine. Recently, we've seen a greater approach from the Trump administration to impose additional pressure on the Russian government with regard to bringing this war to a close after more than 3.5 years. On October 22nd, the United States Treasury's Office of Foreign Assets Control imposed direct sanctions on both Rosneft and Lukoil, Russia's top two oil producers, accounting for more than 5.7 million barrels a day of oil production last year. This is approximately 60% of Russia's total oil production. Now, the sanctions block both companies from conducting transactions in US dollars, also in terms of raising debt and borrowing and engaging in any dollar transactions, the companies themselves or their subsidiaries in which they own more than 50%. This was intended to put more pressure on Russia in terms of crimping its ability to garner revenues from oil exports that help to fund its war-making abilities in Ukraine. Now, one of the elements that there is a major threat to Lukoil and Rosneft's partners is the possibility of secondary sanctions. Secondary sanctions essentially are sanctions that would be that the companies that are partners with both Lukoil and Rosneft in their international projects that are engaged in operating consortia or joint ventures would also potentially be ensnared in sanctions liability because they won't be able to do business in US dollars. This is a less of an impact on Rosneft because it only has approximately 40,000 barrels of oil equivalent production in its international portfolio, which is a small percentage of its total. This is the bigger problem for Lukoil. They have approximately 300,000 barrels a day of oil equivalent in its international portfolio. So the number of international partners that Lukoil has makes this a much more significant potential for being ensnared in sanctions liability. Now, before any of the partners have had to actually make any significant push with regard to Lukoil, there is a wind down period until November 21st. But before we've even got to that point, on Monday, October 27th, Lukoil announced that it was going to divest its entire international portfolio. And where there had been some generate some significant interest in some of Lukoil's international stakes, which include minority stakes in a variety of E&P projects, including in Azerbaijan, Kazakhstan, United Arab Emirates, and offshore West Africa. On October 30th, Lukoil announced that it had sold its entire international portfolio to Gunvor, a Swedish-based oil trader. Gunvor does not have upstream assets until now. There is a question of whether Gunvor is going to look to sell to serve as a clearinghouse for some of these Lukoil assets, or whether they're going to participate and become more an upstream player. There is a question also from regard to Lukoil's partners, whether they will countenance the idea of bringing in a new partner, even as it allows them to essentially avoid this potential of being caught in sanctions liability. Now, what we haven't seen is any move from Rosneft to divest its international portfolio or any response really to the actual imposition of new sanctions. So the countdown is on until November 21st. I think what we do see is the essential sense that the United States is looking to put more pressure on the Russian government, whether that changes Russia's behavior with regards to the war and makes a determination to make some compromises is still to be determined. I think what we do see is this element that the United States government is determined to crimp Russia's ability to continue funding its war in Ukraine. Whether or not this brings a conclusion to the war remains to be seen. Russia's response to these sanctions is going to have a significant impact on global oil prices. And I think the element of some shuffling in the international portfolios of some of these companies and how this impacts some of the global integrated companies, as well as international upstream players that have done business with Rosneft and Lukoil, will be determined in the next several weeks.